We love Classical Conversations.
Your organization is known worldwide, and we certainly appreciate every facet that you do.
I do believe in what you're doing because I've seen it in my family.
I'm so excited about all the things that, Robert, you guys do with Classical Conversations. It's been a huge blessing for our family.
Grateful for the work at Classical Conversations. You're a leader and you have been in this movement for a long time.
I do feel like I have a debt of gratitude to you, your family, all of CC for just the fruit that has come from CC.
Appreciate all that you guys do, both through this wonderful podcast and also through Classical Conversations, which I am convinced is the best education resource out there. Thank you very much for all that you do for the cause of Christ and for our families and for our children. Really, really appreciate it.
Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today I have Kelly Shackelford. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of First Liberty Institute. He's a constitutional scholar. He's argued in front of the Supreme Court and won multiple times. You may remember Coach Kennedy. They were behind that. He's also argued the Carson and Mankin and American Legion versus American Humanist Association. So great victories in front of the Supreme Court. He's one of the greatest 25 Texas lawyers of the past quarter century, according to Texas Lawyer, and is a recipient of the prestigious William Bennett Ball Award for Life and Religious Freedom Defense. And so basically he knows a lot about religious liberty. He's argued in front of the Supreme Court and won. And so I'm so happy that you have joined me today. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Happy to be on.
So, Kelly, we've had a lot of victories, at least for the religious right in a way, or just religious people in America altogether the last couple of years. And one of those being the ability to pray at your job if you're a public school teacher. Kind of crazy to think that was illegal. So what are some of these victories we've had, and what does that mean for America going forward?
Well, it's the average American, including the average person of faith, probably isn't aware of kind of what's happened. And I would just say it's a pretty dramatic move of God, because I've been doing religious freedom work, my whole life. I've been litigating in 37 years now, and things that we didn't think possible in our lifetime have all begun to occur. And so probably the best way is to kind of summarize real quick for people. There's about 7,000 requests a year for the Supreme Court to take a case. It took 56 last year. So that tells you your chances are not good for the court to take your case. If our goal over the last few years was for them to take one of our cases, that'd be a pretty heavy goal. But they didn't take one, they didn't take three. We won 4 religious liberty cases at the Supreme Court over 13 months.
Wow.
3 of these are what I would call landmark. Just shifting the law and the whole approach kind of cases. First one of those was Carson versus Macon, which was the idea that when you have a school choice program, can you exclude the religious schools? And we won at the Supreme Court 6-3, which from now on, every program, school choice programs everywhere, you can never tell the parents they can't pick the Christian school. You can't exclude them. So very big precedent that'll affect a lot of churches, a lot of Christian schools, a lot of religious schools all over the country. The second one was the Groff case, and this is a case about religious freedom in the workplace. We've had protections, but they were really eviscerated about 50 years ago in a decision that was really dishonest, and it kind of reinterpreted all the words of the protection to make it to where the protection was really non-existent. We went to the Supreme Court and we did something a little different, because we just thought we needed to be direct. We said, look, this decision from 50 years ago was a lie then, and it's a lie now. This is not what these words mean. And they ruled 9-0 in our favor and restored that religious freedom protection in the workplace, which is going to mean a lot to every person of faith. That affects hundreds of millions of people. It affects people into the future, and we see that case cited numerous times every day, and it's been that way for 2 years since we won that decision. And then the big one everybody knows about is Coach Kennedy case. The coach who was fired for going to a knee and saying a prayer. after the game. And most people know we won, and coach got to go and pray. And that was a victory for teachers and coaches, that they don't have to be ashamed of their faith. They have free speech rights. They have free exercise rights. They don't have a right to coerce kids, of course, but they have every right to live out their own faith. What people don't know is what happened within that Coach Kennedy case. There was a major precedent called Lemon, aptly named. It had been around for 50 years, and it had created this sort of hostility to religion. It kind of said wherever government is, religion can't be. Well, government's everywhere. And so all of a sudden they were kind of the KGB anti-religious police. And so we had nativity scenes taken down our whole lives, and menorahs around Hanukkah, and 10 commandments pushed into the corners. And why? Because any of these things are in the Constitution? No, because of this Lemon case. Well, in the Kennedy decision, the Coach Kennedy decision, they said lemon is over. It had been cited 7,000 times in the last 50 years to be anti-religious freedom, and it's gone. So I just wanted to lay that out for people, because most people don't know what's just happened, but the reality is every person of faith right now has more religious freedom than they've ever had in their lifetime. I mean, these shifts are major, and it's just most people don't know. They don't know that they can have a nativity scene at Christmas. They don't know that you can have a menorah up at Hanukkah, things which are great for our country. I mean, we celebrate faith, right? And you know, if you move faith out of communities, you have a vacuum that gets filled with something very different. And now we can bring back really who America was founded to be, as long as people know and will go and do those things in their community. They can make a difference, and they can bring that back. But it's been huge. And we're just at the beginning. We've got another case we're arguing at the Supreme Court later this year about a guy who just wanted to share his faith in a public park. It's going to be a really important precedent, I think, that's going to be set there. We have a number of others. So we have Christian school case that's sitting up at the Supreme Court right now. And there's stuff happening every day. But I would just encourage people that we really are winning. God is doing something. He's really opening up religious freedom in ways we haven't seen ever. I didn't think was possible. And we're just the beginning of that. I think we're going to win more of these cases, because we're getting back to really what our founders put in place in our Constitution, that this country was built on religious freedom. So as we do that, I think we're going to start to see a lot of different things happening as people begin to realize the freedoms they have.
Yeah, I know. I've just read an article that Pete Hegseth's allowing, I guess, the Department of Defense people to pray and to be able to express their religious freedom there. And I know that the left has been up in arms with that. And I think, it's really important for people to know, especially, there are businessmen that listen to this, that, it's not illegal for you to, you can't coerce someone to pray, but it's not illegal to pray at work or have Bible studies or do any of those things, that you're not a Christian just on Sunday and you have to be a statist, or, you can't express your faith the other, 6 days of the week. So, yeah, before these laws were in place, like, Christians almost had to bifurcate their lives. And it's part of the hypocrisy or the kind of what was thrown at Christians was, you're hypocrites because you act like this on Sunday, but not the rest of the way. But we almost had a legal system that emphasized that bifurcation of our lives. So, like, what would you encourage, maybe a Christian business owner or someone who, is managing people or is in the workplace to be doing now that the Supreme Court has kind of reaffirmed the rights that we should have had all along as Americans?
Yeah, I would say first, if a lot of times people are confused, and when they're confused, they kind of shut down. Just number one, no, we have like links or pamphlets on all of these things. What are your rights in the workplace as an employee, as an employer of faith, as an employee of faith, and we would lay that out. What are your rights in the public schools as a student? What are your rights as a teacher? What are your rights as a parent? We have a whole pamphlet on parents' rights. We've got some unbelievable cases that are even hard to believe. So I would say that first. People need to know, even in the military, you name it, we've got those things. Call us, go online to firstliberty.org and use all that. Just make sure you get your boldness back to be who you're supposed to be. But I would say in the workplace especially, if you got an employer and they're a person of faith, there's so much they can do. And the only thing they can't do is something no Christian employer would ever want to do, which is force their faith on somebody. Say, well, you don't get the promotion unless you are of my faith or whatever.
Sure.
And I mean, nobody does that. So, but the stuff they can do, I mean, they can have a Bible study as long as it's voluntary. We've seen so many groups do great things. Interstate Batteries, Chick-fil-A, a lot of these places that have done a lot of creative things. Provided marriage counseling to people who are having problems in their marriage. There's all these great things they can do as long as it's voluntary. And so I think that's real easy to accomplish. So I would just encourage them, make sure they know their rights. They can fully live out those things. I mean, I've said to employer groups I've spoken to before, I've said, these are people of faith, and they'd say, maybe most people spend most of their waking hours at work. And so, the biggest thing you might do in your business really is over the 40 years that you're, leading that business, might be the, 500 people that come to faith. Much bigger than anything else you do. But you got to provide those opportunities. You got to provide, you think of how much time as an employer you think about how to advance your business. Do you even spend 1% of that time sitting around and strategizing and praying about how to do that to affect eternity, and your employees who you love? So some of that is just being creative. I mean, I had a group a number of years ago. It was a couple of administrators in public schools at a high level. They retired and they thought, well, I want to do something. So they started a ministry to just focus on educators and to help them in faith. And so what they did is they came up with a list of 100 things you can do in your school. I mean, real simple things like put a prayer box in the faculty lounge and say, hey, if you have a prayer request, put it here and we're going to pray for it. And it was amazing. In just 2 years in that school district, over 600 teachers and educators came to faith. And it was because 2 people just said, hey, let's do something. So every employer can do that if they just sit back and think about things to provide voluntarily, things that people can do that can make a difference. And there are a lot of groups out there that come up with those ideas and that they can even sort of steal from if they want. But don't be intimidated that, the law is on your side. I mean, the beautiful thing, there's religious freedom for employers and religious freedom for employees, because that's what kind of country we are.
The Classical Learning Cohort is comprised of small groups of CC parents learning how to become more confident, competent classical teachers. We provide a welcoming place of mentorship while practicing classical skills and hospitable assessment. With feedback from peers and mentors, you will experience transformational growth as a classical Christian educator. Why not sample the CLC by attending a free online event with a CLC member? Go to classicalconversations.com/cohort and search Experience a CLC event to find a time that fits your schedule.
Yeah. No, it's been it's been a huge blessing, and I know I'm part of the C12 group, and I talk about them quite a bit, and they've been on the forefront of this endeavor as well. So just thank you for that. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not in it, but I thought I saw something where it got clarified that pastors can be kind of more political or talk about the politics of the day from the pulpit. And I know a lot of pastors have been scared to maybe address the biblical reasons for voting a certain way in the past because of potentially losing their 501c3. Can you clarify that for me? What's been going on that front?
Yeah, I'd say first, again, we have resources on all that. A lot of stuff that's out there is it's a false fear. I mean, and we lay that out. First, I would just point out, every church is tax exempt. They don't have to be a 501c3. In the tax code, it specifically says, if you are a church, you're automatically tax exempt. So they think they got to jump through all these 501c3 hoops and file all this stuff. They really don't have to if they don't want to. Now, some people like that because, because really the 501c3 was meant for all nonprofits, right? Not just religious. It's like for all other nonprofits. And well, how are you going to know if they're a nonprofit if they don't get approved by the IRS and have their little form and all that? And so a lot of churches like to do it just to have the form. But I say that because they need to realize that the IRS doesn't really have authority over them. The First Amendment is much more powerful than some IRS agent and some regulation. But even under the 501c3 regulations, there's almost nothing that I've ever seen a church ever want to do that the IRS, that would say that they can't. So for instance, can a pastor do something political? The pastor can do whatever they want. The pastor is not a 501c3 entity. It's the entity that's in play. So did First Baptist Church of so-and-so endorse blah candidate? Well, I haven't seen many churches that wanted to endorse as a church any candidate, right?
Right.
The pastor can be the head of the campaign committee if they want to. They can do whatever they want. Can churches talk about at the church? Can they talk about all the political issues? Absolutely. No restriction at all. What the IRS would say is there's two things that 501c3 entities can't do. The entity can't endorse one candidate over another. And secondly, they can't give substantial resources to one campaign over another. Again, I haven't seen many churches wanting to open their coffers to give to politicians. So it's not really something they're looking at doing. What churches can do, speak to the issues, educate people about the elections, tell them they should be voting, provide voters' guides, register people to vote. They can even invite all the candidates to a race if they want to come to their church and talk. If one shows up, they've done all they need to do is invite everybody, and they'll know who the friendly person is. Or if more show up, they can ask them questions and find out where they stand on the issues that the people care about. So there is all this freedom there, but still, some people were scared because they didn't understand. And again, we have a resource on that. If people, they just go to firstliberty.org, and we have all that on pastors and elections, churches and elections, and all that. But what you're referring to is just recently, there was a lawsuit against the IRS for these regulations to even say they had authority over churches. And that lawsuit was filed before the Trump administration came in, but now the Trump administration is in. So they immediately said, yeah, we agree with you that we don't have authority over churches to tell them what they do from their pulpit. And so they're trying to enter into what's called a consent decree. And if the judge accepts it, then it'll now be a binding injunction for all future presidents. That'll make clear that you can't go there. You can't do that. Now, we've always believed that that's what would happen if we went to court anyway. Every year we get numerous churches that tell us they've gotten some threatening letter from the IRS. Every time we send a letter to the IRS saying, you have zero authority in the pulpit of a church in the United States of America. And we cite a bunch of Supreme Court cases. And every time the IRS says we're dropping our investigation, they don't want that lawsuit because they know they'll lose. So I think this will end up being a consent decree that's agreed to by the judge. But even if not, I mean, the reality is churches can do what they want to do. And that's up to them. Now maybe some church will want to endorse a candidate. That's going to be their freedom. I think most won't. But they'll definitely want to talk about the candidates and where they stand and what's a biblical approach to those issues, which is totally within their authority to do so.
Well, I just always encourage pastors to be afraid of God, not of the IRS.
Amen. I tell you, the biggest problem is just people of faith not voting.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last election, about 50%, I think it was 49% of evangelical Christians didn't vote. And when you ask them why, it was fascinating, but I tell you, you talk about pastors, one of the questions, we helped commission that poll along with Barna. One of the questions we asked was, of the ones who said they weren't going to vote beforehand, we said, how many of you would if your pastor said you should. 17%. That ended up being like 6 million people. And
Wow.
so, God gave us this incredible gift to steward our freedom. And most of our brothers and sisters around the world, they don't get to pick their leaders, their policies, any of it. Well, he gave us that. And it's to me, it's like putting the talent in the ground and burying it. I mean, it's incredibly disrespectful to the Lord. We have a chance to actually go in the voting booth and represent Christ to the best of our ability, and that's what we're supposed to do. So one of my pastors in the past got up. He's not political at all, but he got up in the pulpit and he said, "If you're not voting, you're in sin, because God gave you this to care for, and there's people's lives at stake from what happens." And so I encourage pastors. God created 3 institutions in the Scripture, right? He created the church, He created the family, and He created government. Well, I've heard a lot of sermons on the other 2, but you don't hear a lot of sermons on how a Christian and government. And man, that used to be something every pastor did before the election. And we need to get back to that and understanding the incredible gift we have and the opportunity we have in this country to represent Christ, even with our government.
Well, I know before the Revolutionary War, they depended on pastors to talk the truth and what civil government was responsible for. So, 6 million more Christian voters would certainly change the outcome of a lot of elections and the direction of our society. And I think just what we've seen in the Supreme Court and what you all have been able to accomplish and others on our side of the aisle for religious freedom, we can see it is important. Like who you elect is important because they are appointing judges and making sure that laws respect God instead of putting us under a tyrannical foot. So, what really quickly, I know we're almost out of time, but there's rumors that they might look at Oberfell again, and do you think we're gonna see that soon? And if so, like a lot of people think that when the pro-life movement caught the car, that we weren't quite ready for what was going to happen next. So what lessons were learned? And if Oberfell does get turned over, like what do Christians need to be prepared to do?
Yeah, I think you're right about the life movement. I asked a number of those leaders before. I said it was coming because I know the court fairly well, and I said they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Are you ready? Do you have your polling? Do you know your messaging? Do you know the strategy? And they said they did, and they didn't. They really weren't ready. They're kind of catching up now, but they didn't. I don't think the court's ready. I don't think you'll see them take the case to overturn Obergefell yet, because I don't think there's very many justices on the court that are ready to go there. I think that the culture will have to come along a little bit first. And I just don't think they're there yet. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you have 1 vote for that right now. I don't know. Maybe 2. And so as a result, I don't think they're going to take it yet. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the case. They are, though, moving and without any hesitation in a great way on religious liberty. They're doing it on the Second Amendment. They're doing it on sort of what I would call anti-bureaucracy. In the past, some of the court decisions have given a lot of authority to these bureaucrats who aren't elected over your business, your family. They have really cut that back. The Chevron deference case was a big one on that, the Loper case. So they're doing a lot of great things on the Constitution, but the court is not usually going to lead the way. They're gonna if what they did was so bad that nobody's ready for it, I just don't think they do it at that time. So I think, and it should be a little bit. I remember being in a room with Scalia a number of years ago, and somebody asked him when they were going to change some of these things that were going on, and he kind of looked at them and he said, "That's not my job. That's your job." He said, "You need to change the culture. You need to have the discussion. You need to have the debates about what is the best public policy, and we need to provide you the freedom to do that." And so I think we're heading back in a better direction right now. But I think Roe v. Wade was first. I think religious freedom at the same time, the restoration is beginning to happen. I think Obergefell might take a little longer, but we're moving in that direction to defend marriage.
Well, thank you so much for going on the show today. Can you just give our listeners one more time the website where they can get all that great information that y'all have compiled so that they can stand up tall when they defend their own religious freedom?
Yeah, just spell it out, firstliberty.org. And I would really encourage everybody we have an email that goes out every Friday. It's called The Insider. And we have 750,000 people who have subscribed to this. Doesn't cost anything, but we take all the stuff that's going on every week and list the 4 or 5 most major things that happens each week that would affect religious freedom. And a lot of this stuff people aren't aware of. So it's a great way to kind of keep involved. You're going to be encouraged because you see a lot of victories, a lot of people of faith standing. And it's called The Insider. So when you go to firstliberty.org, you'll see it down there. And if you sign up for that every Friday, you'll get that update.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for coming on the show today. That's firstliberty.org. We'll put it in the show notes. Go sign up for the emails. And God bless you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation and visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.